Hi, and welcome to Watch It Played. My name is Rodney Smith, and in this video, we're going to learn the two or more player That Sound game, designed and published by Natalie Delaney John and Cam Jasson, who helped sponsor this video. Do your neighbors a favor and close the windows, because it's going to get noisy. This is a party game where, yes, there is some acting, but as the title suggests, it's all about the sounds you make to get your team to guess your secret prompt. So prepare to get loud, join me at the table, and let's learn how to play. To set up, find these category cards and separate them by their backs, shuffling each pile. Nearby, also set this lowdown and score card, dry erase marker, 1 minute sand timer, and die. Now divide all the players into no more than 4 teams, ensuring there are at least 2 people on each team. The more people you have in each team, the better. So if you had 6 players, rather than have 3 teams of 2 people each, you might find it better to have 2 teams of 3 players each. That said, I'm not the party police. Divide the teams as you like. Now find the Lifeline cards, which have this back, and go through their faces, giving each team 2 Steal and 2 Uncuff Me cards. In this video, we'll assume we have 3 teams, returning any leftover Lifeline cards back to the box. Then the person who last received a noise complaint becomes the sound master. If nobody qualifies, just pick the person who's most likely to get a noise complaint, or you can just pick someone randomly. And that's the setup. In That Sound game, teams will be taking turns trying to correctly guess secret prompts their sound master will be partially acting, but mostly sounding out while a 1-minute timer goes. Once a team has had their turn, the next team will choose a sound master who gets a new series of secret prompts they need to get their team to guess. And turns will continue like this until a team has reached the game's target score. We'll talk more about scoring later, but for now, let's see how a team takes their turn. As we already explained, a sound master was chosen, and their team will go first. The sound master begins by rolling this die. Each side represents one of the 5 different types of categories. Incidents, which are made up of events or occurrences like accidentally biting your tongue. Actions, which are the process of doing something, like yawning. The P's category represents people, places, and personas, like a pirate or a bowling alley. Green is the nature category that will have plants, animals, and natural occurrences like frogs or thunder. And finally, we have the objects category, which has things of any size that can be seen and touched, like a roller coaster. So again, each side of the die will show a different category, with one final side that says all in, but we'll see how this works a little later. For now, let's assume that we rolled object. The sound master, me in this case, collects the deck that was rolled and will only draw from it during this turn. They now draw and secretly examine the top card of the deck and then place it separately face down, making sure no one else saw it. Then they start the 1-minute timer by flipping it over, and as soon as it's flipped, the sound master must stand up and clasp their hands behind their back. They now have to try to help their team guess what was written on the card they drew by using sound and movement only. As long as your hands remain behind your back, you can use any types of movement, such as jumping, crouching, lying down, running around, or anything else you can think of. While performing, you can also interact with things and people in the room, but you cannot indicate towards something that is directly named in the word or words on your card. For example, as the sound master, if I was trying to get my team to guess doorbell, I could not direct their attention to this sliding door because door is part of the word doorbell. Otherwise, you have a lot of freedom in how you act as long as you keep your hands clasped behind your back. However, acting isn't your only tool, of course. You can also make sounds. In fact, you must make sounds. As we'll see, you will not score any points for a correct guess from your team if the sound master only acted and didn't make any sounds. So think about noises you can make to help your team figure out the prompt on your card. Be loud or quiet, hum a tune, but do not say any words unless they're words that imitate a sound, like oink, bang, quack, splash. These are words known as onomatopoeias, and they are the only words you can say. Everything else has to be sounds. But there is one limitation on using onomatopoeias. You cannot use one that is directly named in the word or words on your card. For example, if I was trying to get my team to guess the object tap shoes, I could not say tap, tap, tap. Tap is an onomatopoeia, but it's also part of the words I need my team to say. Okay, with those rules understood, let's go back to the start of a team's turn where I'm the sound master and you're all on my team. We'll assume I rolled the incident category on the die and I've looked at my prompt. Here's what I would do next. And see if you can guess my prompt by shouting it out. Chirp, chirp, tweet, tweet, tweet. Ah. 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 Okay, I'm going to stop there, but I would keep going until I heard a teammate call out the right answer. And they can make as many guesses as they like. Did you have a guess? Well, if you're curious, that was me putting on an Oscar-worthy performance of being pooped on by a bird. And I hope at least some of you guessed this. Now, you might be wondering if a team has to say the words exactly as they are on the card to count as a correct guess. This is something you'll want to decide on as a group before the game begins. You can require the wording to be exact or decide that being close is good enough. For example, I would have accepted getting a face full of bird poo as the correct answer here. Either way, once a Soundmaster's teammates have called out the correct answer, the Soundmaster may unclasp their hands to draw and secretly examine the next card from the category deck that the Soundmaster had originally rolled. So in this case, another incident. Then they put the card down, reclasp their hands, and try to get their team to guess the new prompt. That said, if your team is having trouble, you're allowed to skip the current card and draw a new one. This will give points to the other teams, as we'll see, but you can skip as often as you like, just draw a new card and keep going. And don't worry about organizing the cards you've drawn, completed, or skipped. Feel free to just throw them on the table as you draw new ones. This is a fast-paced game, so you don't want to waste time. Remember, there is a 1-minute timer going, and as soon as it runs out, all guessing must stop, and then you score the round. Each card your team guessed correctly earns your team the points showing in their bottom corners here. So if they guessed these 3, they'd earn 3 plus 1 plus 2 points for a total of 6. You record your points on the scorecard under your team name. For each card the Soundmaster skipped over to draw a new one instead, 1 point is given to each of the other teams, no matter the point values printed on the cards themselves. So, if as the Soundmaster I had skipped these 2 cards, each other team would get 2 points, which they then record under their team names. Each other team also earns 1 point every time the Soundmaster accidentally unclasped their hands from behind their back, except when drawing a new card. Other teams also earn a point each time the Soundmaster broke any other rule we discussed, like motioning towards something in the room that is part of the word on the card, or using a word that is not an onomatopoeia, or using an onomatopoeia that is part of the word on the card. The other teams also gain a point each time you did not make any sounds and only used movement to help your team guess the prompt. You'll find a reminder of how you score your team's points and which mistakes earn the other team points right here on the player reference if you need a reminder while playing. Also notice here, if the timer runs out while the Soundmaster is giving clues, no points go to the other team for the card the Soundmaster was working on. With the scoring complete, the next team in clockwise order goes, and they choose one of their players to be their Soundmaster, who will then follow all the steps of a turn we learned previously. They roll a die and then draw cards from that category during their turn. But now let's go over what happens if the all-in is rolled. In that case, the Soundmaster picks any category taking that deck. They draw the top card and examine it as usual, then put it down, flip the timer, clasp their hands, and start giving clues. The twist is that all of the teams can shout out guesses, and the first team to guess each card correctly will earn those related points when the timer runs out. If more than one team guesses a prompt correctly at the same time, all of those teams earn the related points. The Soundmaster can still skip cards and draw new ones as usual, but at the end of an all-in round, no teams score any points for any skipped cards. But all of the other teams do score a point for each time the Sound Master broke one of the rules as usual. Once the 1-minute timer runs out, teams total their scores for any correct guesses they made, and then the next team in the turn order goes. And I should point out, as turns continue, all the players within a team must take turns playing as the Sound Master. Okay, with that understood, we should now learn about the Lifeline cards, and each team starts with 2 of each type. Lifelines can only be used once the timer starts, so let's assume it has. If the Sound Master then wants to use an Uncuff Me Lifeline, they have to ask permission from their team by saying, "Uncuff me." If their entire team agrees to let them use it, the Sound Master gets to release their hands and use them until the sand timer runs out. Once the timer does run out, that Uncuff Me card is returned to the box. In this way, each team will only have 2 chances to use the Uncuff Me Lifeline. The other lifeline, known as a steal, is used by a team when it's not their turn to make guesses. If you think you know what another team's Sound Master is trying to get their team to say, and your team still has a steal card, you can shout out, "Steal!" You do not need the rest of your team's agreement to do this, but then everyone stops guessing and you must immediately make a single guess. If you're correct, your team will get the points on that category card, and you get to keep the steal card you used. So as long as you always guess correctly when you attempt to steal, you'll always have a steal card to use, and you can steal multiple times during the same or future rounds, as long as your team has a steal card. If you try to steal and guess incorrectly, or hesitate when making your guess, your team loses a steal card, returning it to the box. That said, whether you were correct or incorrect, the timer is not stopped and the Sound Master continues their turn right after the steal attempt. Just be aware, lifelines cannot be used during a turn where an all-in was rolled. Okay, as rounds continue, teams will add any points they earned to the ones they had previously gained until a team reaches the target score. You should all agree on a target score before the game begins. The rules recommend 30 points, but you can choose a higher or lower number if you like. Once a team reaches the target score, keep taking turns so that every team has had an equal number of turns. After, if there's only one team that reached or passed the target score, they are declared the winner. However, if more than one team reached or passed the required score, those teams enter a tiebreaker round. Here, the next team in the turn order picks a Sound Master to play an all-in round where just the teams involved in the tiebreaker make guesses. A timer is not required. Instead, the first team to guess a single card correctly immediately wins the game. And you only draw additional cards if any of the teams shout out the correct answer at the same time, and then just they will continue to tiebreak. All right, with that understood, let's go over the 2-player rules. Here, both players work cooperatively and no lifelines are used, so you can return them to the box. Players will take turns being the Sound Master for 1 minute each, going back and forth, and the goal is to score 30 points before the end of the 15th minute attempt. You earn the points on the cards you guess correctly, but lose 1 point for each card you skip, and another point each time you break any of the rules as usual. There's also an option for party play, where you just choose a card at random and take turns with one person playing Sound Master to the entire group. But otherwise, that's everything you need to know to play that sound game. If you have any questions about anything you saw here, feel free to put them in the comments below, and I'll gladly answer them as soon as I get a chance. You'll also find forums for discussion, pictures, other videos, and lots more over on the games page at Board Game Geek, and I'll put a link to that in the description below. And if you found this video helpful, please consider giving it a like, subscribing, and clicking that little bell icon so you get a notification anytime we post a new video. And if you'd like to support us directly, you can join our Patreon team, which I'll have linked below. But until next time, thanks for watching.